Welcome to Livestock Podcast brought to you by University of Tennessee Beef and Forage Center. I am Bruno Pedreira, Center Director and UT Extension Forage Specialist, joined by Dr. Katie Mason today here with me, our UT Extension Beef Specialist. How are you doing today, Dr. Mason?
I'm great. Living the dream, enjoying this nice weather we're having.
Awesome. Yeah, we are getting there. I think we are getting to the fall. It's getting good here around us in Knoxville. And today we are here very excited to have Dr. Saulo Zoca with us, Assistant Professor and Extension Specialist, Beef Cattle Reproduction with UT's Animal Science Department. Welcome to the Livestock Podcast, Dr. Zoca.
Thank you. Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's get it started. I want to start today. You know, we have another Brazilian here, so what can we do, right? I want you to start talking about your background, why you were here today. What did you do to end up at, the repro guy here in the extension with us at the UT Animal Science team?
Absolutely. I guess let's start way back then, right? So I think my career started, I'm going to start when I went to college. Right, so I decided to do vet school in Brazil, and I've always had the passion for a large animal. And as a good kid trying to go to vet school, I just want to save all the animals. And then I find out early on in vet school that is not the case. And and thinking about future careers and things like that, and I realized that wasn't really the career I want to follow. But I want to stay on large animals. So that's when I crossed paths with a faculty over there, Dr. Vasconcelos, that most people know him as Akinha. And that's where I fall in love with beef cattle reproduction. I was part of a group there, a student, like a club there called Conapec Junior, that is heavily involved with research and extension. So really, that's what really instilled that passion on me for both the research and extension side. So through that group, Dr. Vasconcelos is very well connected with faculties around the world. And I had a big interest on male fertility, male physiology, and I had worked on some undergraduate research with water buffalo. And that all those things connected to, I went to University of Idaho to do an internship, what is part of the graduate or undergraduate program for vet school and the university I was. So I met Dr. Dalton, Joe Dalton at University of Idaho, started working with him and developed that relationship. And towards the end of my internship there, Dr. Dalton approached me and said, "Hey, do you have interest in going to grad school?" I say, "Absolutely." Because we've talked a little bit about it. I mentioned, and it's like, well, I have this project that is looking at male fertility and looking at different insemination doses, so the number of sperm per straw that we use for AI, that we are going to be doing actually in combination with Brazil. So you're here, we know each other. I think that'll be a perfect fit if you're interested in it. So that's where my relationship started there. I went back to Brazil actually and did all that research before I even started my master's. Finished vet school, did that project, and then worked a little bit in Brazil, and then came back a year later. So about a year and a half after I graduated vet school, I actually officially started my master's here in the U.S. at the University of Idaho. So when I was halfway through my master's, I talked with Dr. Dalton and I was like, well, that's really what I like to do. And I want to continue. I want to go for a PhD. Would you take me? And he was very honest with me. I was very fortunate to have him as a mentor, because he stopped me as like, "Saulo, I would love to have you, but for two reasons, I'm not going to keep you. One, I don't have money. And two, I think you can go somewhere else in a bigger lab and have whole lot more experience than stay here with me." And then he actually helped me figuring out a place to go for a PhD. So I told him, I was like, well, but I would really like to go somewhere a little warmer, because Idaho for a Brazilian guy was a little cold. And he was like, okay. And we started popping up names, and I got in contact with Dr. George Perry. At the time, he was at South Dakota State University. Now he is at Texas A&M University. But I was like, okay, I talked with him and I went visit, and then I got back there to Idaho, looked straight to his face and told him, you know, South Dakota only has South in the name, right? It's not really in the South, and it's actually colder than here. But I moved to South Dakota, so that's where I did my PhD, continue working on the male fertility side. With Dr. Perry, we have a fairly big lab when I was there. And so I interacted with the other grad students so I was the only male fertility person in the group. All the other members were on the female
Male
side.
side.
So I got a lot of experience there. And on the other side, and then after I finished my PhD, I did also a year of postdoc there with Dr. Julie Walker. But one thing that I didn't mention is, so the group I was part in Brazil, the Canapac, and Dr. Vasconcelos, Joe Dalton at University of Idaho, George Perry, and Julie Walker, all of them had extension appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And all that experience working with research, but also going back and being really close related to the producers.
Apply the results.
Applied, yeah. It was very interesting, and I was like, I like it, and that's kind of what I want to do. And then this position came open. I had barely started my postdoc when this position came open, and I went to Dr. Walker and say, hey, I like it, I want to apply for it. And she was very supportive. I was like, yeah, I think you should. I think it's a really good fit for you. And then things work out great. I fell in love with the state.
Tennessee is a beautiful place.
It is beautiful, beautiful. I think I found my perfect weather. You know, coming
Yes.
from Brazil, moving to the north, and now coming back a little south. I think I found my perfect weather. You know, our winters are not too cold, and our summers are not too hot. So, beautiful landscape with my position, right? It's 100% extension. I travel throughout the state a lot, and I get to see a lot of our beautiful state. And I have just good things to say about Tennessee. So.
And your colleagues, right? Just great colleagues.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But that brought you here. So yeah. So glad to have you here. It's
Yeah. So that was
working with you for as long as we have, which is not a long time because we're young. But yesterday you and I were talking, Saulo, at our Beef and Board Center meeting about reproduction practices in Tennessee. We were kind of talking broadly about just general management. What should people do to be more efficient on the farm? And so thinking about those broad steps, what can people do to improve reproduction here in the state in their cow herds?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to general management, right? So reproduction is just a piece of the puzzle. So we always have to remember this. And me and Bruno also talked later yesterday at dinner how everything is integrated, right? So to be very honest, yes, I'll focus on reproduction. I'm going to give my reproductive physiologist answer, but I think everything starts with proper management of the farm, proper management of the soil, good nutrition. So, getting all that set up well. So actually, when we get to the reproductive portion there, the animals are set up to thrive. Right. So, but focusing on reproduction, going back to the question, right, Katie? And I think the number one thing for me would be having established breeding season or calving season. More 60 to 9-day calving season is likely the number one thing. Then I would follow by bull breeding sounds exam and pregnancy diagnosis. Those two would be equivalent for me, and putting their almost those three kind of go together there. You almost have to have all three if you really want to be successful and sustainable and stay in the business long enough, especially from now on where the pressure for sustainability keep coming up. So those probably will be the three major components there on the reproductive management. And then of course, we can move forward and start talking about, estrus synchronization, artificial insemination, some of our more progressive producers, especially on the seed stock world, we can start talking about embryo transfer, IVF, things like that.
Yeah, a bunch of technology that we can put them together to make it happen,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
You mentioned artificial insemination for a while here. we all know that's not exactly what we have a lot in Tennessee, but we all came from Brazil, and there it's heavy, right? I don't know, comparing with other countries, how much more we have there than here, but I can see the gains through artificial insemination, right?
Absolutely.
All the herds that I have been working in Brazil that use it more, you can see after just a few years when you are not using the same bull for maybe 4, 5, 6 years, and you have a chance to every year bring new genetics within that process. How do you see these around here, not only in Tennessee, but maybe in the Southeast US?
Sure. So in general, right, let's take a big picture and bring it down to Tennessee. I think that's the best approach when we're talking about AI. So if we think about US wide, we probably AI somewhere between 8 and 10% of our beef cattle herd.
Okay.
Heifers a little bit more, cows a little bit less, but we are probably around that 10% of our beef cattle herd is what we use artificial insemination. If we think about synchronization, the other technology, it's even lower numbers, right? Now, if we go to Brazil, which is not only our home country, but is the largest beef cattle producer, I think it's if it's not number one, is within the top 3 beef exporter in the world. Brazil has the second largest herd in the world, just behind India. When we think about number of animals that are commercial animals used for production, then Brazil becomes
The
number
largest,
1.
yeah.
And Brazil has over 200 million cow, or had I think it's 215 million, somewhere around there.
Something,
yeah. So it's very, very large herd, but it's still about somewhere around 25% of beef cows in Brazil use artificial insemination, are bred by artificial insemination. And actually, several producers right now use multiple rounds of artificial insemination because they understand the benefit of that AI calf. So, of course, when we translate Brazilian cattle to US cattle, we do have very different genetics, very different bases, management, everything. It's very, very different. I'll say even though Tennessee is very heavily forage-based cattle, right? Like Brazil is, we still have big differences because our winter in Brazil is not as harsh and we don't have to feed hay anyway. Several other management there. But going back, I think the genetic of those animals, right? So Brazil, the large majority of the cattle is Bos indicus. So when we think about meat quality, there is a huge gap between when we think about our Nelore cows there, or Nelore cattle, compared to our Angus-based, probably the most predominant cattle here in the U.S. So there is a big difference. So what Brazil cattlemen are doing, they're crossbreeding that cow that is harsh, can endure the environment with Angus semen, so you can bring that meat quality, the heaviest carcass, that production system, but you
then gain weight,
and you still holds up the resistance, the adaptability to the environment where we are, that is hot, ticks, things like that, right? So there's a lot of benefits for them. Management wise, they start learning now how to balance between AI with Angus and the lower cattle, so they can maintain their replacements. So they are improving a lot, and they're very good adopters of especially fixed time artificial insemination in Brazil. Now, when we come to the US, there is a huge benefit for us to doing crossbreeding as well, but not everybody see that benefit, I guess, as clear as when we see when you mix basically 2 subspecies. They're talking about Bos indicus and Bos pars.
Right.
So the benefit of, let's just use an example, crossbreeding an Angus and a Hereford may not be as clear as crossing an Nelore with an Angus, just because of the distance, right? So I think you guys have Troy here, and
we talk a lot about crossbreeding.
The farthest you go, the more heterosis you get, and the better the gain, right? So, but we still have that benefit, so we still can use it. But also the genetic improvement that we can get, or the advancement in turnout of the generations by using artificial insemination is great. Like Bruno mentioned, we can have a bull there, the average age of bull is about 4 years. So you have 4 generations coming out from the same animal, And in small herds, we are talking about Tennessee being 35 head average.
Mhm.
Talk about one, maybe two bulls, where you have to manage that inbreeding of those animals and everything. So if you only use natural service and you retain replacement heifers, you start having increase in breeding
Mhm.
of those animals. So there is a huge benefit. Some of the economical benefits of doing AI, especially on the larger herds, come from you need less bulls
Mhm.
because now you get more. Let's say on average, half of your cows bred by artificial insemination. So if I have 60 cows and half of them are bred, now I need one bull instead of two bulls for the same number of females. Uh, that comes some other technology we were talking about that we can come into play, and it's not for everybody, but it's an alternative, bringing sex semen. So you can create your replacement heifers with AI and then use your bull to clean up, and you find a very good terminal bull, and you produce really good calves from your terminal bull, and you produce your replacement heifers out of your AI. But conventional semen, that situation is true too. So, there are management that we can think about, and it's a case by case, not necessarily everybody.
We use it. Yeah, no, sure.
Yeah, just one of those tools that we could talk about all day on the different ways to use AI. But you mentioned, bull power, and I want to get a little bit into talking about the UT Bull Test program. So you help oversee that. Plays a key role in developing great bulls for folks in Tennessee and maybe even surrounding states to buy and take back to their herd. Tell us why it's so important for folks to understand their bull's performance as they're being grown and getting ready for that breeding season, and also how they can use the bull test.
Absolutely. So the bull test is open for anybody that want to bring bulls for us to develop. We have our website, but you can go to our utbeef.com
It's there.
website,
Yeah.
and under education there, you can find a bull development evaluation program, and we have a schedule there. Currently, we have this year's schedule posted, but basically we had some shifts from last year to this year. We had some big shifts on the timeline there, but we are going to maintain very similar timelines. So basically, just move to 2025, and you have a big, good idea of when we're the date, the birth dates of the animals, the age. I've been getting some questions. So anybody can nominate bulls. We're going to intake it. The current barn holds somewhere between 80 and 100 animals. We've noticed some improvements on the health of those animals and maintenance of those animals in the barn when we are around the 80 heads. So that's what I'm trying to keep. So this year, we had an intake of about 84 bulls on that barn. We are hoping to have somewhere around 60 to 65 bulls on sale, and our sale is going to be December 12th this year at the Middle Tennessee Research Education Center in Spring Hill. It is a great program, especially when we think our small and medium-sized producers that cannot have their own sale, right? It's a great marketing strategy, so they can bring their bulls in, hold some bulls home, and use us as a, hey, here's my bull, here's how that bull, my bulls compare to other bulls within the breed and even other genetics, and then use us as an advertisement material there with their animals in there for, hey, if you need more bulls, if you couldn't get the bull in here, you can come to me, the farm, and I have more bulls at home. Most of our producers do have extra bulls.
Okay.
To be fair, I try to, it depends the year. We may limit the number of nominations per producer,
Okay.
so we can give opportunity to more producers. This year we have Angus, Hereford, Simmental, and Sem Angus bulls through the test that will go through the sale. Of course, our Herefords are red Herefords. We have, I believe, three red bulls, red Simmental bulls, one black Simmental. The rest, all the Angus are black, and some of our Sem Angus bulls will be black and bowdy, but majority will be black Sem Angus bulls.
Cool. yeah, good opportunity for folks to come to that sale later this year and check that out.
So yeah, just continue on the development of those bulls, the proper development too, right? So it is a good tool for especially those young producers that are just now getting into the seed stock world, come in, bring their bulls in and see how their genetic and their animals compare to others and figure out what they can do to improve.
I think that's the best part of the program, right? As a seed stocker, be able to compare whatever you were doing with your pairs in the region and be able to compare the genetics behind
Because
it.
those animals will be similar age, and then you just compare within your breed and even across other breeds. Maybe if you okay, maybe I should merge to that other breed. I think it might be better or not. It'll depend on your plan and management goals of the farm, but
And they are there under the same management, right?
Correct.
The whole, how long is the period that they are going to be there with you this year?
so this year they arrived somewhere around not somewhere around, they arrived July 9
Okay.
and they stay until December 12.
Okay.
Where they go through an 84-day period. So we do adaptation. They go through an 84 period performance test. And then at the end, they go through a breeding sounds exam. So all the bulls on sale had adequate performance
Within that.
to be included in the sale, plus they all passed a breeding sounds exam.
Mm.
So that's another important portion. They're going to fertility, right? Making sure those bulls and go back to the first question or the second question, having that breeding sounds exam, make sure those bulls pass, and not only semen quality. So we've checked those bulls for structure as well.
Okay.
And there's other components of the breeding sounds exam that's beyond just semen quality. That is as important as semen quality.
Segue on this. How often do you find bulls with bad results on the exams?
Absolutely. So most of our bulls, and that's a good question because I can take it two ways, right? So on average, our bulls, so the last 5 years, about 24% of our bulls fail. The yearling bulls fail. National average is somewhere between 20-25% of bulls will fail their breeding sounds exam. So that doesn't mean those bulls that fail will generate zero pregnancy. That means they're subfertile. The large majority of them are subfertile. So they're going to generate lower pregnancy rates. And sometimes you're not going to even notice until next year calf crop and lower pregnancy rate and delayed pregnancy rate.
Okay.
So instead of having most of your calves early on that calving season, you used to have a little bit every day or you spread throughout. And when we think our management and we wean all those calves in the same day, that gap between age of those animals and will cause huge impact on weight, which turns out to be a huge impact on our profitability, but also uniformity. The reason we talked about another reason why we talked about breeding sounds or breeding season, calving season, AI is so we can get uniform animals for when we are weaning them, and we can have truckloads, better prices. So all that is connected, right? So it goes from, like we said, start with the soil there and pasture and good management all the way through that uniformity, that good animal that will go out to the feedlot, and the feedlot with a homogeneous group don't have to worry. They can treat all of them equal. Now, when we have huge variations on size and weights and ages, now they have to start splitting those animals. And when you start commingling too many different sources of animals, health issues becomes a problem issue.
No, really, really great thoughts, Saulo. I think that's what the kind of things we want to bring here to the livestock podcast and discuss with our farmers. And to get to the end here, to try to wrap up our conversation, we're talking a lot today. You are also one of the leaders to the heifer development program, right?
Yep.
You already talked about how important it is on the male side of it. On the female side of it, we know the importance of the heifers. That those will be our mama cows tomorrow, right? How does the program work?
Good. So there throughout the country, there are several different methods that different universities, different land grant universities do heifer development programs. So our program, we actually house all the heifers within our farm there in Lewisburg, where we have the heifer development program. So the proper heifer development set them up so they can actually be good mama cows in the future. So breeding correctly, selecting the bulls you're doing so you can have good heifers, then getting those heifers and properly developing them so they can reach puberty early, they can get pregnant early. All those pieces in the puzzle, they're extremely important. So that's where we come into place. Again, thinking about the average producer in the state of Tennessee with 35 head, they may have 3 to 5 heifers that they are going to raise as replacement for next year, maybe a little bit more. And then, well, now I need a bull just for the heifers because I need a Cavingese bull for those heifers. Or I'm going to sacrifice my cows, putting a Cavingese bull and lose performance on the males and the other animals being born from my cows, mature cows that can hold that extra or the lower Cavingese animal there with extra gain, but not my heifers. So our program takes the heifer away from the operation, right? They bring to us, we do all that development, they go back home to calve. So they stay almost 10 months with us. So we really get them shortly after weaning. We prefer if the producers wean and background them or precondition them before they bring it in. But basically, that's kind of what we want when the heifers come in. We're going to do target that 55 to 65% mature body weight for heifers, which is the optimal weight for them to breed as heifers. We remind our producers that those heifers do need to grow. So they have to reach about 80 to 85% of their mature weight by calving. So they still need to be on a growth
to help them to get there.
But they have to reach that 55 to 65% mature weight by breeding. They have better success. They have better chances become cyclic if we do that properly. Of course, genetic plays some role in there on reaching puberty early. But also, if we look at the literature, there's several data that show that those heifers that get pregnant early and consequently calf early on their first calving season stay longer in the herd. And if we look on economics and for us to pay for the heifer or the cow to pay off her raising costs, it takes somewhere between 3 to 5, maybe 6 calves. So if those heifers that calf early stay longer, and on average it's a year longer, then they're already set up for a better prognostic for us to become profitable, right? To pay off their bills. So doing that proper management. So if you don't have ability to have a place or the extra management for your heifers, it might be better off trying to find some different alternatives. We also this year, we started our heifer sale. So we also, for the fall group, we don't have one for the spring group, but for our fall group, we have a heifer sale. Last year, I think we sold about 60 heifers, 60 to 70 heifers. That's what we sold last year. They were mostly in pairs, a few singles and a few in 3 heifers groups. So some producers may not need to develop their own heifers. And that's something I bring it up to. Maybe you can crossbreed everything, bring a terminal animal there, you sell male and females, and then you go out in the market and you find a good replacement heifer, especially a pregnant replacement that will calve next year. So I don't need to worry about the Cavingese and things like that. So those are some other options there. The fall group that just came in, we have almost 300 heifers in that group this year. And of course, most of our producers take their heifers home, right? They use us, we develop. Some of those heifers will go through the sale. And this year, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be, or next year, sorry, May 23rd. I think that's when our heifer sale is going to happen. So they will be eligible for TAP. So this year, our sale was out of the TAP window. So we made some changes to make sure
be there.
Our heifers will be within the TAP window, so the producers that come by can take advantage of the program.
That's great. I think we had a great conversation here today and great information for our farmers here in Tennessee. I'm happy with all of this. Katie, anything that you want to add on this?
Yeah, no, I'm just glad that we got to say that nutrition was important and even down to the forage in the soil. So
we got it.
Truly glad to have you. I appreciate you sharing some information about what you do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Saulo, thank you so much for being here with us today, sharing all of this good repro work you guys have been doing, especially focused there in Middle Tennessee, to be able to be in the center of the state, right, and helping people here and there.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Katie. I'm very appreciative of being invited to be here and in this.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us on this livestock podcast again. It's sponsored by the UT Beef and Forage Center. We hope everyone tunes in the next month for another great conversation about beef and forage.